dialogue from the east of the city this morning. Joining us will be a number of guests from across the stakeholder spectrum that will be giving us a bit more details about this particular illness and why it is that we need to be shining the spotlight on breast cancer in particular. I don't know about you. You can share your own personal experience, but I know in my life, increasingly, it just feels like there are more and more people who are being diagnosed with cancer. The doctors will tell us if that in fact is the case, or maybe it's just that people are speaking about it more. That's part of the conversation that we will have. So part of today, of course, in having this broadcast, we want to ensure that we're bringing communities in contact with stakeholders who can support them in not only accessing early diagnosis, finding treatment options, but also overcoming the disease and how to thrive after remission. So to tell us more about the purpose of this dialogue and why it's important for the public broadcaster and SAFm in particular is our group executive for radio at the SABC, Nada Wochela. So I should also be saying, she's my big boss. I have a boss, but she's the big boss. So good morning to my big boss.
Good morning, Kathy. Good morning to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to this very important event and a live broadcast of a crucial conversation that we should be having every day in our country. Thank you all for joining us, especially the listeners at home, as we form a united front to fight a common enemy. Like you just said, Kathy, cancer is becoming the #1 enemy of humanity. While we welcome the strides made by modern medicine and medical professionals in South Africa and elsewhere in the world to fight the scourge of cancer, human beings continue to suffer, especially women, when it comes to breast cancer. In a country like South Africa, where access to information, let alone decent health care, is still a privilege that is only reserved for a few who can afford it, it becomes very important for us as the public broadcaster to create platforms to drive awareness about diseases or illnesses or actually any condition that threatens the lives of our people and those that we love. I would therefore like to thank the SAFm team for putting together such a fantastic event and an opportunity to engage freely with information from exceptional experts that are here in this room, professionals in the area of medicine and specifically cancer, people who have dedicated their lives to fighting cancer. I would like to thank our partners who have joined forces with us in this conversation, and I hope you will all enjoy the proceedings here today. And the listeners at home, I'm sure you will also get an opportunity to participate in this important conversation. Thank you so much.
Nada, in many respects, this conversation, of course, speaks to the public mandate imperative of the SABC.
Yes. It is quite important, Kathy, for us as a public broadcaster to always make sure that we reach every South African, especially with information as important as, healthcare, not just about cancer. It is an imperative of the SABC to keep the public informed, to, for people who cannot access, these professionals, bring them closer to them so that they can also have an opportunity to ask questions, to engage with information. It makes life better even for someone who is sitting in a rural area who is dealing with cancer. And also remember, in some of our communities, cancer is still, taboo subject to talk about. People don't freely declare that they have cancer or someone in the family has cancer, and people suffer in isolation and in silence.
And on that note, it brings us to the theme for cancer awareness this month, at least as commemorated by the United Nations, which is no one should face this battle alone. And it really speaks to your point that you're making. And this is why this platform has been created, because if we're able to have a national conversation about it, it also gives courage to those that are currently fighting this disease.
Definitely.
Nada?
And we're glad we can play our part as a public broadcaster.
Thank you so much for opening us officially for this dialogue. Nada Wachela, the Group Executive for Radio at the South African Broadcasting Corporation. So up next then, we're going to start with the health aspect of things. And this is from the technical side. We'll have on our guests who are different role players within the care, the health care, or the treatment and management of cancer. They'll be joining us shortly. And then in the second hour, this is at 11 o'clock, it'll be the third hour of the show, we'll hear from those that are survivors. We'll hear their journeys, just again to remind us, you know, if it can be a lonely journey, suffering from cancer. And I say this not out of personal experience, but out of hearing the experience of other survivors, and also watching some of those close to me who have been diagnosed with cancer. And when we have conversations like this, we also give them the opportunity to be a little bit more vulnerable, to be a little bit more open about their individual experiences. So all of that coming up after this quick break.
Whew, what a day. Time for that face mask. Leave the face mask on for 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not even enough time for it to work. I can't even send an email in 2 minutes or make a cup of coffee.
With Santam, 2 minutes is enough to insure your car online. When you're fully protected with the expert insurer, you're free to live in the moment, not in the worry. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Sanibonani babukele emakhaya igama lami nginguSisi. Make sure that you catch us on the 2nd of November, celebrating 30 years of summer music at 8:30 p.m. only on SABC1.
Celebrate 30 years of music with the Summer Awards, Saturday 2 November. Yellow carpet starts at 7:30 p.m. and the main awards at 8 p.m. on SABC1.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. You, the silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we would take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains, and I'll
see any cancers, and I was told that it wasn't a disease of black women. Cancer affects everyone. If you are dying in a rural area without going to a hospital, you are not ticked off on a pathology database as having had cancer. So what you guys do, amazing. So if you're 35 and you've got a mass and a nipple discharge and something doesn't feel right, know your norm, seek access to care, don't rush into surgery, go for sonars and needle biopsies, and then cancer doesn't run around your body in 24 hours. You want a multidisciplinary team approach to make sure you're safe, and that's how you survive.
I want us to spend a bit of time understanding the cancer disease, because it is one of those that I don't think is fully understood. And we'll get to treatment later, but often, there'll be people who say, including doctors, who say, well, actually, if you live a healthy life, eat a healthy diet, you reduce your chances of getting cancer.
I'll give you a COVID analogy. Okay, so here's a cell, it's undergoing change, it's like a snowball heading down the mountain. The first 10 repairs, your little cell genes are going putty on this wall, putty on that wall, they don't manage to fix it. And then as it undergoes change, the immune cells, your immune system are going, kill it, the little hyena cells. And if they can't, it takes 90 divisions and it starts growing into a cancer plant. Think what happened in SARS-CoV-2. We locked down the world. We had a virus, Pandora's box. We thought we could lock it up. You can't with a virus. So everyone is exposed. Not all of us had positive tests. Hey, me, okay. So not all of us got sick. Some of us got a little sick. Some of us got a lot sick. Some of us got very sick and died. The medical fraternity were quick to say, if you were in this box, if you were old, like cancer is more in older people, if you were overweight, cancer, if you drank and smoke and had other diseases, you were more likely to be very sick, stay at home. Yet we all saw people who were fit and healthy who got sick and died, and people who are not healthy who never got sick, because it's how an abnormal cell is fixed by the little immune cells that are supposed to kill it. So the first thing we've got to do, and again with what your CEO has said about, it must resonate that it's nothing you've done wrong. These things are happening in our bodies all the time, and sometimes, unfortunately, like the bad lotto, it's going to happen. You can exercise to decrease your risk, but you can't necessarily prevent it. So we need to take away stigma and realize if something doesn't feel right, come and seek help. But that's how cancers happen, whether it's kids or adults. Do you guys agree, disagree?
Dr. Dimakatso, do you want to add to that?
I won't add more. She has already covered that area.
No problem.
But I did say go for your sonars and mammograms.
Yes.
Don't go to the surgeon.
Don't worry, I'm going to come to you in a moment when it comes to the identification and diagnosis then of cancer. Lucy?
I'd like to definitely agree with you when it comes to lowering your cancer risk. Yeah. We talk about lowering the cancer risk. We don't even say prevent, because we're saying lowering and exercise, do physical movement. It can be a walk. And also what you said is know your norm. Go for regular checkups. And I think I love what you are doing today. You are educating the listeners. We are getting a message across that get to know your body. Get to know what the cancer warning signs and risks and symptoms are. And if you are educated, that means you get better detection, because it means you're going to be detecting it early. And early detection means a much better successful outcome and treatment.
Right. I'm going to pause the conversation there. It's 10:30, time for the latest headlines. We'll, of course, continue on the other side of this.
A very good morning to you. With the news headlines this hour, the DA says it's optimistic that the midterm budget policy statement will allow for measures to be put in place to enhance economic growth and promote job creation. The community of Mqhekezweni in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape believes that the people that killed the Abatembu chieftainess, Nogcinile Mtigaga, were looking for her son. And voting is currently underway in Botswana, where President Mokgweetsi Masisi is seeking re-election. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 57 to the dollar, 22 rand 86 to the pound, and 19 rand 03 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mainly weaker at the closing bell. The JC mostly red in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe have extended losses. Gold is trading at $2,782, platinum $1,035 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $71.73 a barrel.
Join Dis-Chem's World of Beauty at Canal Walk Shopping Centre from 30 October to 3 November for an unforgettable beauty extravaganza. Discover top brands, exclusive deals and exciting giveaways while you explore the latest in skincare, makeup and fragrances. Plus, personalised beauty advice from on-hand experts. Treat yourself to must-have products with unbeatable discounts, specials and gift with purchases. Don't miss out on the ultimate beauty experience with Dis-Chem. Better beauty starts here.
Bahlabani Bandwa want to fight like real warriors to secure a semi-final spot. But Stellies believe they have a top-class plan to march to the last four. This is the quarterfinal of the Carlin Knockout. Fagugesi! Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ipola Lasemzansi. Marumo Gallants FC versus Stellenbosch FC. This Sunday, 3 November at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.1 FM in Bombela. Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. We're shining the spotlight on breast cancer this morning as part of our Breast Cancer Awareness Month campaign. We've got a number of specialists that are joining us for this conversation. Professor Carol Ann Ben, who's the head of she's no longer actually the head of the breast unit. So what's your official position now?
Well, I don't know. I suppose just a worker. Okay, so I run a big international unit here locally, and we treat people whether they have access to funding or not.
So we'll call her a breast cancer specialist and expert. Can we leave it there?
You know what they say about experts? They drips under pressure.
Dr. Dimakatso Tebe is a radiologist. Lucy Bologna, head of marketing and communications at Cancer, that are one of our partners for this morning, and Anita van der Walt, who's a biomedical scientist. So let's then get to the diagnosis of cancer. And I must say that when it comes to the risk factors, how to know if you've got cancer, it can be very difficult sometimes for women to tell. If you're PMSing, you feel like, oh, why does my breasts feel a little bit bigger than they usually are? They feel softer than, or a bit more tender. Am I going through risk factors? So how do we know that we are now facing symptoms that are actually part of the risk factors and not just going through the life cycle of being a woman?
So the tips are: you pick one day a month or a week after your period, take your bra, lift your bra up and give them a wiggle, okay? Because you see if anything sticks, and you lift your arms up, you see if the nipple pulls in, you see if there's a change on your nipple. When the secret is when you feel softly your breasts and just fine feeling them. When you check for glands, feel with your arm on the side. Everyone lifts their arm above the head because that's the position that when you go and see this lovely lady for a sonar, she does. Mm-hmm. But if you want to feel glands, you've got to just have a little relaxed feel here. And if it doesn't feel right, okay, check in 2 weeks. If it doesn't feel right, go see your friendly radiologist. Don't go see your surgeon, okay?
Dr. Dimakatso, what are some of the questions that you find patients ask you when they come to actually have scans taken before we get into the process then of diagnosis on your end medically?
Most of the time, the women, when they come with the concern about their breasts, the questions that they will ask is, will I know when I leave today that I have cancer or not? Doctor, am I going to die? And all that, because of what people have always thought when you are diagnosed with cancer, it means death. However, with the changes and with the modern advances in the medical field, it's no longer the same. We have advanced in the medical field. Cancer is no longer just like you are going to die. There are many things that can be done when you have cancer. So most women, when they have a lump, they immediately think it's a cancer. We need to make women aware and everyone aware that not all lumps are cancerous. But by staying home with a lump, you won't know whether it's a cancer or not until you come and consult, have your imaging done where we can do the mammogram and the ultrasound. And then after that, it's not even enough. We even have to send the tissue of your of the breast where there is a problem to the laboratory. The laboratory then will tell if it's a cancer or not. So by saying it's a cancer, or there is even now a tendency, I think that's why most of the patients, when they come, it's advanced. It's because sometimes even in our field, some fellow general practitioners or any other doctors, when the women come with a lump, or even in the clinics, you'll find the stories that they were given antibiotic and been told that it's an abscess. Without imaging, I must stress, you will not know whether it's just an abscess or what.
100%. So how long is the process between that first day that I come and see you, Dr. Dimakatso, to when I then have clarity about what the diagnosis might actually be?
Okay. Because of I have worked in the government sector and I'm now in the private, I'm going to tell you on both sides what
Please
happens,
do.
so that even the women who are in the rural areas, they know what happens. Unfortunately, in our country, we do not have enough available modalities like mammograms in those rural places. I must say, we even see people in the government sector. When I worked, we used to find women coming as far as Mpumalanga, and it's a long journey for someone who's in a province like that to get to a hospital where there is a mammogram. The last time, 2 years ago, when I was working in those areas, I used to do the outreach where we'll go as radiologists to cover and assist in those places, hospitals where there are no radiographers. Some in the Mpumalanga province, if I give you an example, the whole province in the government sector, they only had one mammogram in Rob Ferreira. The rest of the hospitals did not have. So you can imagine in the government sector, it's a long journey for the people.
So we've just, I run a clinic at Swallow. What we're starting to do is use automated ultrasound. So it's because not everyone can access mammography. So you actually don't need mammograms. You want them in specialist units, but in peripheral units, you can use a handheld ultrasound, and then you can pick up if there's a problem and transfer, because you heard not every lump is a cancer. So if it's got a high index of suspicion, then those patients can go in to a specialist unit, and it's not a rush. It doesn't matter if you have a biopsy done and someone has to do a telemedicine a week later or 2 weeks later to give you a result, because we don't want people rushing into treatment. You want correct diagnosis, not rushed, because TB in this country is a great mimicker of cancer. When I do outreach, we see 8 TBs in a row in a bed, and they all look like a cancer in the breast, but they don't have glands, and there we go.
Thanks for that, Prof.
Yes. So the journey for a woman when you have to get to the diagnosis, it differs in the availability of resources, as I have mentioned, that those who are in the rural areas are still not privileged. And then I come again in the government sector still, people who stay around places like Atteridgeville, you know, where you're closer to Kalafong, where there are facilities there, mammogram is there, ultrasound is there, or even Steve Biko. And this is the Pretoria area because I am familiar with those places. I worked there. So when a woman comes with a lump, first of all, then the surgeon has to send the woman to us, the radiographers, where we will do the mammogram and then the ultrasound. We use both modalities because mostly they help each other. So after that, once we have identified a lump, we then have to do a biopsy. So because of staff shortage in the government sector, sometimes you find that when the woman comes that day, she has to be booked again for another day to come for a biopsy. You can find that it's 2 weeks or even more because of shortage and the lots of women who are coming. Remember, I said these hospitals, they cover even outside nearby provinces. So the amount of patients they get, it's a workload, it's high. So after that, then the woman, when the results come, and remember the laboratory, it's not like when you do the blood for the full blood count that it will be available immediately. It will take a long, like it can take about 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, mostly in the government. And then when the results come, then the woman has to go and see the surgeon. And remember, we talked about just the image. It was just the breast that has been detected that there is a lump. Before the treatment is done, the doctor will have to know how much has this cancer spread in the body.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Dr. Dimakato, the process of diagnosis itself can be quite anxiety-inducing because of the weight that patients have to go through.
So I always talk about hospital environments as hostile, whether they're private or government. So that means that, you know, and that's why I always say people must speak to people nicely, because now you've taken your 1 day off and you've walked, when they come to St. Swallow, 3 or 4 hours to come in, and then someone says, clinic's full today, or we don't have a clinic today, or you can't do this, and then that person takes that little amount of money and food and has to go back into the environment. So this is opportunity for change. This is a day workshop, and there are ways. And before we look and say how bad it is, let me tell you something. I have second opinions coming out of the UK all the time of delays of months and months and months to diagnosis and treatment. So no place is perfect. We have opportunity through empowerment ideas like this to make things better.
All right.
So it's very hard, but we can get it right.
Yes. Thanks, Prof. Lucy?
I just want to echo what you're saying, both of you. One of the biggest challenges we see in the communities, women come to us with late presentation, am I right? So we don't do treatment as the Cancer Association. You know, we've got the experts here. We help cope with the side effects of that treatment, help them cope through that cancer journey. And I think that's the most frustrating thing. These ladies or men, because, you know, men can get breast cancer too. So they're coming to us very late. And, you know, like we say, early detection is key. And what we do is we try to help navigate through that system. So as you can imagine, they're traveling, they come from very far. They're often giving up their jobs, and then they're getting treatment or they don't get their results in time. So we have a very strong advocacy department who spend hours working with the departments of health. We have to collaborate with them. And then we work with them and say, right, here's a patient. This is the patient file. You've only booked her now for treatment in 6 months' time. She can't wait 6 months. So, you know, we have to do that kind of thing. And the other things we've started to institute is we call these information support desks, where we've got volunteers and staff at some of the public hospitals. So, like, I think we're at Charlotte Machetley, and we're at Steve Biko, and we're also, I think, in Robert Sobukwe and Kimberley. So we're trying to establish these desks and to help navigate that patient. So when they arrive, where do you go to? What do you need now? Who can you go and see? And how that actual diagnosis works. But I think one of the strong messages is getting to know your body, getting to know what those signs are so that they don't wait. And I think
so people are not ignorant. We think people arrive late because they don't know. You know, if you've got a headache and a lump in your breast, people, the environment is hostile, and it makes that continual pushback difficult to access into care. So it's not that you don't know, sore foot, or sore head, It's just that it's the mission of you go there and you get pushed back and push, etc. So these are fixable things, okay? Because breast cancers come in different families, and if you pick them up early, we can treat it. So we encourage people, so well done always to what you guys do, because you give opportunity to make things better on how people can access different units.
Sure.
So
Anita, let me give you a chance to come in here.
Thank you, Kathy. Now, for us, I'm from BioMed Emporium and I'm a pharmacist, but what I do is I make sure that our products actually say they do what they do and they're compliant with international guidelines and standards so that they're really safe. So why I'm here today is what we've seen. We have the private sector, clientele patients, and then we have the public sector patients from our wound care side. And it's really, the need is immense. And if we can see that this is a multidisciplinary, cancer is not something that you go through alone because you need your team. But we just see one small aspect of that, and that is how people's skins look like and how they feel and the treatment that they need. And sometimes cancer, what happens on the inside, you can actually see it on your outside, but they're not always sure. So if they feel a little bit better and the wound heal, and we can help with those wounds to heal, because of the public sector patients not always having access, and as we know, with all the stumbling blocks and that it's really hard work just to get to everyone. We have encountered a number of patients where they had surgery and then they weren't looked after properly. So those wounds that got infected and that we got involved in that way, or other patients where they were actually still waiting on treatment and where these cancerous tumor actually spread through the skin and the infections and everything. And we can just see the change in those women for if they feel better, if their skin, if a wound gets healed, just their spirit lifts up. And to be part, and a very small part of this journey, is for us an absolute privilege. So we work with wound care clinics, and we would like to also work further with the team and really be involved in that, because we really see the difference that can be made.
Thank you so much for that, Anita. Dr. Dumakatso, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought for me for a second. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll continue with the conversation. I want to hear from you, right? As you heard, breast cancer is a disease affecting both men and women alike. Maybe not at the same prevalence rate, but certainly we all run the risk nonetheless. So what are you learning out of today's conversations, and what are the questions that you have around the diagnosis and the treatment of cancer? What are the questions that you have around diagnosis and treatment? I'll take your calls on 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
Channel 8 decluttered, recharged and flourishing you on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As Coach Lucia Drummond offers practical steps to a less is more lifestyle, HR specialist Tato Mabelane shares key skills to revitalize your career. Plus, Overnight Oats is the perfect after-gym recharger. That's Afternoon Express, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFm invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
We continue to focus on...
Good morning, Kathy. Good morning to your panel. Very interesting conversation. And I just want to know that what are the risks for men? Because I understand breast cancer might be prominent in women. However, as men, I doubt that we're immune. And what sort of the telltale signs, if one could call it that, should one be looking out for as a man, especially over the age of 40? What does one need to look at? Thank you very much. Tanya from Polokwane.
Cancer is costly. Cancer as such in all its ramifications, in its all forms that it assumes, it's so costly. Globally, not only in South Africa, but globally. the impact of cancer to humanity, it's too bad.
Kathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
All right, Prof, you wanted to answer that question from one of our listeners?
Yeah, so just quickly, sub-Saharan Africa has a slightly higher incidence of male breast cancer than the rest of the world. It sits at 3%, the rest of the world 1%. So as a man, men have moobs, male boobs. Okay, you've got boobs too. So if you see a change on the one breast, a change on the nipple, a hard mass on the one side, you go for a breast ultrasound. How do you decrease your risk? Exercise, BMI under 30. It's not just men over 40. I have 27-year-old men with male breast cancer. It's treated identically to female breast cancer. So you don't need to have that pirate cut, that looks like the old movies. We treat it the same, but make sure that if you see something concerning, you go and you have an ultrasound.
Timakato?
Yes, in addition to that, the other things that I have found that some of the males they present with, they may find that you have bloody discharge coming out from the nipple. So those are also the signs that they have to look for.
In terms of treatment and the journey that patients have to walk, what would you say some of the biggest challenges, Lucy, you're facing is when it comes to treatment options that people have? And of course, we all want a cure for cancer, but it seemingly is not available.
No, I think some of the biggest challenges patients are facing is just the economic impact and just lack of access to care. We know 80% of our population don't have access to care, and 20% do. So we're dealing with very underserviced communities. So we have to be present there. We try to make all our information available in all the different languages, isiZulu, isiXhosa, Sesotho, where we can. So this is where we all need partners. All of us need partners to come on board, and brands, and help us to translate materials, translate our videos. There's videos on how to do things. But I think those are the biggest challenges that the patients are facing, and long distances. Many of them are coming from far rural areas. We've got a children's program called Cancer TLC. We are seeing mothers that are actually leaving their jobs because they're so desperate for their child to be treated. And they will bring their child, they come there with nothing. So those are the things. I mean, I think cancer, the disease, once you have a diagnosis, not only does it impact the individual, it's impacting the whole family. It affects you at your
mental
work.
health.
The
and
mental
economics.
health. As Anina talks about those side effects with surgery. There's all those factors, which I'm sure Carolyn can say.
I think what's important is that we use the collaborative effect, because I want to tell you that private is also not great, okay? So what you guys can do is set up access points of where we can set things up, like you can run ultrasound, automated ultrasound clinics, navigators. You don't need specialists and doctors, breast off or blondes. You need a simple navigator to say, this is the problem, this is how you make the diagnosis. We could do digital multidisciplinary and get people in. People need less. What's the future? People need less chemos. There are fancy new target oral medications, even for advanced cancers. No one needs a mastectomy. You need small surgeries. The future is we're going to freeze cancers. So radiology. So there are better ways of doing things, and it's about collaboration, understanding that people aren't ignorant. They want to seek help. You don't walk kilometers. You want to seek help. Our problem is we need to make sure they can access help.
Okay. I want to give Anina a chance to come in. I'll end off with you, Dimakatso. Anina?
All right. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, I fully agree with Prof. Carol, and it is really, people want help and they're really desperate. And if they don't get it, their mental health deteriorates. And to uplift them, if they can see a change in how they are affected, then they will also feel better, and emotionally you'll just see a person is different. We had a patient coming in, and the lady she didn't even lift up her head. She was just she needed the public sector. She was waiting still on the list for a treatment, and with that, she got a big wound on her breast to such an extent that I feel it's not our place. We're not doctors in all. We just treat and help where we can with the wounds and all. And we are involved in sponsorships and foundations where we do help these patients, because for us it's about more than just the private sector. And if we can't do our part for the public sector, I don't think we should be in South Africa.
Sure.
If we don't want to walk that mile, then what are we doing here? So just the change in those patients and how, the cancer is still there. We're not treating it, but the wounds healed.
The smell
so
is
from the smell, that it was really horrific. And she was not affected only in her house, her home. She couldn't go out. You're so isolated.
Yeah.
In the time when you really need people and support. So being part of that journey, that is the greatest feeling in the world.
Thanks for that, Anina. And in a moment, we're going to hear from some of those survivors who'll share their own experiences. Dimakatso, you get the last word here.
Yes, I want to stress about the importance of collaboration. Yeah. Private and public can collaborate and help in winning this cancer. Hence, in our practice where I work in Pretoria, during the month of October, we have decided if a woman comes with a medical or a cash who can afford private, we give a voucher to bring someone along who cannot afford. And I must tell you, Kathy, during this month, I have seen about 4 patients who could not afford, and this has also eliminated the waiting of going. The other one was a 31-year-old, and she told me she was supposed to go to a government institution waiting for a sauna until November. So we have reduced that waiting period by offering the service. We did a mammogram and the ultrasound, and then we gave all the images, and then she was able to go to Calaform, and then she doesn't now have to wait for booking for mammogram. Sure. Already we have shortened the waiting period for her to be treated.
Thank you so much. We could go on, but there's always never enough time. Yes. We're going to have to leave it there with the specialists when it comes to the diagnosis and the treatment of cancer. When we come back, We'll hear what the survivors have to say about their own journey. It's 11 o'clock, time for the latest news. Well done.
The top stories is our optimism ahead of the midterm budget and a lion on the loose in Mpumalanga. A very good morning. The DA says it is optimistic that the midterm budget policy statement will allow for measures to be put in place to enhance economic growth and promote job creation. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will deliver the statement in Parliament this afternoon. DA spokesperson Willie Oukamp says rising debt servicing costs must be reduced significantly to send a positive signal to the markets and investors.
More than 20 rands out of every 100 rand that the government spent goes towards interest and debt service cost instead of it going towards service delivery. We need to have a higher level of debt repayment. Our debt to GDP ratio has increased from 28% 15 years ago to where we are currently standing at 75%. This needs to be reduced for us to have any chance of growing the economy, as well as signaling to investors that we are credit worthy.
Build One South Africa leader Musima Mani meanwhile says it is important for the budget to focus on the 7th administration's economic growth initiatives.
Ensuring that we create an indicator about how we fund for new infrastructure that South Africa needs to build, what tax incentives we give to businesses, how do we ensure that we fund for education given the strain that the Department of Education has been placed under, and ultimately, given that there's been a reduction in the number of police, how do we increase the number of police so that we can keep South Africans safe?
The community of Mqhekezweni in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape believes that the people that killed the Abatembu chieftainess Noqinile Mtikhaga were looking for her son. 2 men entered Mtikhaga's house and reportedly gunned her down last night. Police have confirmed that 5 grade 12 learners were raped in the same area. They've launched a manhunt for the suspects. Family spokesperson Mandlonke Mdazuka says they are shocked.
I received a report from the Great Police here about 2 o'clock, and she told me that Noqinile Mtikhaga, the chieftainess, has been shot dead. When I came here early this morning, and I was told that 2 people arrived and they entered the house through the front door. And she heard that there are people here inside, and she came out of her room and they just shot him immediately. They saw her. They were looking for his son, who was still in the house at that time.
A team from the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency is trying to track down a lion which is on the loose in Mbombela. The agency has urged the town's residents to be vigilant. The male lion was spotted near an estate in the town early this morning. The agency spokesperson, Simpiwe Shungube.
Currently, our team is on site since 2 a.m. in the morning, trying to locate this lion. We're using our thermal imaging drone to search for the lion. For now, we want to appeal with the community to remain calm, be vigilant, and should they see this lion, they must contact us as the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency immediately. Then we'll be able to dispatch our team. They can contact us on 072 033 7559.
And voting is currently underway in Botswana, where President Mokgweetsi Masisi is seeking a second term. He's facing a challenge from 3 candidates. Some analysts suggest that the ruling Botswana Democratic Party has the edge because of a fragmented opposition. Ditabatso Tetsi has more.
Botswana is a multi-party state, but the governing Botswana Democratic Party has dominated the polls since 1969. This landlocked nation is considered one of the continent's most stable countries, having peacefully transitioned to power in all elections since independence from Britain in the 1960s. However, there are fears this time that there might be post-election violence. This after Botswana former President Ian Khama returned from a 3-year self-imposed exile to South Africa to beg the party help to form the Botswana Patriotic Front in the hope of removing the BDP and his rival Mokgweetsi Masisi, raising the levels of tension around the elections. Ditaba Tsotetsi, SABC News.
The top story at 11, the DA says it's optimistic that the midterm budget policy statement will allow for measures to be put in place to enhance economic growth and promote job creation. For SAFm News, Kimudupi Makhale.
Hello.
Mzansi, Lotto has rolled over to a mind-blowing 104 million rand estimated jackpot this Wednesday. You heard right. Play Lotto for an estimated 104 million rand jackpot today for your chance to bag the multi-millions. Walala wasala. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Usha. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. E2 is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month. A few valuable tips for reducing your breast cancer risk. Do monthly breast self-examinations. Go for regular screening. Do your yearly mammogram.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
The world changes, revolutionaries die, and the children forget. The ghetto is our first love, and our dreams are drenched in gold. We don't even cry. We don't even cry about it no more. Are the beautiful ones really dead? Nizilibe luma, nizala ngoma. Nizala ngoma, nizilibe luma, nizala ngoma lina. Nizala ngoma, nizilibe luma, nizala ngoma. Nizala ngoma, nizilibe luma, nizala ngoma lina. Nizala ngoma, zoina. The world changes, revolutionaries die, and the children forget.
year by the United Nations. The theme for breast cancer awareness this year, no one should face this battle alone. We continue to lead the conversation here on The Talking Point. We're shining the spotlight on breast cancer awareness. You heard in the first hour of this focus from the specialists around what is happening in the sector and also just the information they've shared with us to equip us. What are the risks? How do we begin the process of diagnosis, including some of the experiences that one can anticipate around treatment if in fact then you are diagnosed with cancer. Today we're talking then to the real heroes, and these are survivors of breast cancer, those living in remission. And we're hoping that by bringing their stories, it will not only encourage those that are at home, that know people who are recovering from cancer, that maybe themselves are battling this disease, and also talking about the mental health challenges of going through this journey. Let me welcome then our survivors onto the show. Nono Zwane is a cancer active champion for cancer. Nono, good morning. Thank you for your time today.
Good morning, Katie. Thank you for having me.
Emily Madzi Batong is a breast cancer survivor. Emily, good morning.
Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And Agnes Monin is a Cancer Relay for Life Global Hero of Hope. She's wearing a sachet that says Global Hero. So you've got to tell us what's behind this. Are you the survivor of survivors?
Thank you, Kathy. Relay for Life is a global hero, and we support our relay, all our survivors, caregivers, to relay.
What does it mean?
It means that we have a relay that support the cancer survivors, caregivers. It's an overnight event that we go through the whole night with all the survivors. We go through the track. So that's the Relay for Life.
It's an overnight relay that
correct.
Goes on for how long?
It starts like for about 6 in the evening and to 6 in the morning.
Sure. Mm-hmm. You need a lot of people to keep it going till that long.
Yes, we do. It's actually beautiful. It's lovely, and I would love the whole country to support us.
Don't worry. I know my big boss is a runner, so maybe she can come and be part of the relay.
Yes,
and next time you have it.
Supporters out there as well.
So, no, I want to maybe also then begin with you and sharing your own personal story. We heard the specialists talking about what women often say are the hindrances to them coming forward to getting an official diagnosis. What was the journey like for you, and at which point did you realize that you may have an issue?
Well, I'm a little bit paranoid. I'm a paranoid person. And I always drive my doctor crazy. You know, if I see something, a little difference in my body, then we have to figure out what it is. So every year, from the age of 30, I used to go in January, I used to go for mammogram, all general checkup.
Yeah.
So in 2019, in December, while I was doing self-examination, I found something that was not there before, on my breast. And then I thought to myself, I'll just check it out in January when I do the mammogram. So when I went in, did the mammogram, it came back clear. There was nothing on the mammogram. But I was not satisfied. I left the office and I was like, okay, maybe there's nothing wrong. But 2 weeks later, when I went on my periods, the lump got very painful. And after the periods, the pain went away. And I felt like I had a boil under my arm. So sure. I felt like there's something wrong. And I phoned the radiology department. They told me to go to my GP. So then COVID hit. Everything was closed. I couldn't do anything. And then a month later, I went to my GP when everything opened. And when he examined me, he told me that he doesn't think it's a lump. He thinks it's breast tissue, since I was under 40 and the breast is it's full of dense tissue. So he was thinking it's breast tissue, and I said to him, no, there's something wrong. So we need to check it out. Like I can feel there's something wrong. And then he referred me for a sauna. And even with the sauna, they couldn't find the lump. They found the lymph nodes. And when I did the biopsy, I had to direct the doctor with my hand to show her where the lump was. So sometimes it's difficult for people to come forward because when you get to the doctor, it's so intimidating. And some people are not like me forward. They won't say anything to the doctor because they'll be intimidated.
Yes, if your doctor says you're okay, that's the message you need to actually leave his room, because you actually don't want him to find an issue. So that becomes your ticket out and, a huge sigh of relief.
Yes. Another thing is that we always think that doctors are always right. So they can't be wrong, So we need to, if you feel like something is wrong, you need to voice it out and you need to take action. You can even get a second opinion. It's your right.
Sure. Emily, what was your journey to diagnosis?
Kathy, it was in 2018. I remember I was in a taxi. I felt something in my left breast. It was so very, very, very painful. Then when I arrived home, I told my man that, you know what, I'm not feeling well. I don't know what is happening. As time goes by, you know how men are, they like to touch our breasts. So when he touches my left breast, it was so painful. I said to him, don't even touch my left breast. It's so very, very painful. That's when I decided to go and see my GP. He treated me with antibiotics for about a month. It was in February by then. So in May, the lumps came back. This time I said I told the doctor that, you know what, I'm not feeling well. The lump came back, and then he referred me to a breast clinic in Paraguanath. It's when I started to see the doctors. I went for mammogram. I did ultrasound and biopsy. When the results came back in August, and when the doctor told me that I've got early breast cancer, it was not, I was not well. I was scared. I say, I've got cancer. How come? Where does it come from? I couldn't. It was so I was so confused. I didn't know what to do, where to go. I missed my mom. I don't have parents, my sisters. I've got only my brother, my nieces, and my nephews. But I got all the support from my family, my men, and my friends and neighbors. So after that, the doctor told me that I have to do mastectomy, which I did. It was in October, the very same year. I did mastectomy on my breast left. It was difficult. It was difficult. I didn't know, I even went for counseling because I couldn't see myself living with only one breast. It's so difficult. It took time for me to get to know myself, that I've got only one breast. Sometimes we used to go for an outing with my friends. I couldn't even undress in front of them because I feel so scared. I feel so uncomfortable. What will they say? But some of them, they knew, they gave me all the support. No, we're here for you. Feel free, wear your swimsuits and all will be well.
You talk about going to the doctor, in May, and then only getting your treatment or your diagnosis in August. It's a couple of months. It's a journey, and it speaks to what the specialists were saying. In that period, as you're waiting for that diagnosis, What is going on in your mind? How are you dealing with the different emotions of the possibility of what this could be?
It was so scary. It was so scary that I went for counseling. I even lost too much weight because I didn't know what to expect. I was waiting for the results. I didn't know what the doctors were going to say to me. Even if I don't know what to do by then, waiting for your results. You know, government clinics or government hospitals will have to wait for so long, waiting for your results. And then when we get your results back, they will tell you that you've got cancer. It was so sad. I couldn't cope with everything. I didn't know what to do. Even when the doctor told me that I had to do mastectomy, I even asked myself, why should I remove my breast? Why should I do that? Can't you give me something that will cure the lumps and it just to disappear so that I couldn't go around with one breast? It was so difficult for me, Kathy.
Sure. Yeah. Agnes, let me give you an opportunity to share your own story. And again, speak to us about the journey that you had to walk from diagnosis right through to treatment.
Thanks, Kathy. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2016. Jan 2016. I felt my left arm was very sore, and I didn't know what it was. So I went for a mammogram immediately, and I had to go for a biopsy. After my biopsy, on the 11th of Feb, I was actually called to the doctor's room, and I was diagnosed stage 2 breast cancer. So it was not easy because for the last 2 years, having chemotherapy, loss of hair, loss of weight, I got very, very sick. And last year, I went for my normal checkup in 2023 to have my mammogram done. And they found a lump on my right breast. So I had to go through all over again, having my right breast removed. But this time I was very lucky, with God's grace, that I didn't have to have chemotherapy because all was removed, because the lump was very small. So the support that I got from lots of friends, family, my 3 sons gave me great support. My 3 daughter-in-laws stood by me through my journey. So I got back to work as normal and leading a normal life.
How would you say that as a woman, and especially because we live in a society that puts so much pressure on women and their physique and what they look like, what was the impact for you of having a mastectomy, and how do you feel that it impacted your overall image of yourself? How did you deal with that?
It was very hurtful, painful, because the first time having just one breast, especially when you're dressing up and things like that. But you know what? I accepted it, and I just lived my life. So the second time, it was the same story. But, you know, having the experience at the first time, I accepted. I just accepted it, just like that. Because there's nothing else you can actually do.
Yeah. Emily, do you want to speak about the impact of the mastectomy?
Yeah, because it was after mastectomy, I had severe headaches. It was hard for me sometimes to wake up in the morning. I was admitted in 2019. I was admitted at Charlotte Maxeke, where they did all the tests, brain scanning, to check if the cancer had spread to my brains, because I had severe headaches every day, every morning when I woke up. Luckily, the doctor told me that chemotherapy and radiation were never considered. I didn't do them at all. I didn't pass them. I know nothing of them because of the doctor told me my cancer, it's early. I can't go through chemo and radiation. But the headaches were there all the time until I was discharged in a month's time. After that, I went home. I continued. I was on tamoxifen. I had tamoxifen for 5 years. Until this year, the doctor told me that they need to change me from tamoxifen to aromacin. But I'm living a healthy life now. I'm happy.
And you look good. All of you look good.
Thank you. I got all the support I wanted. You know, when you live with your loved ones, the people that are closer to you, the people that love you, and you share your journey with them, they will support you in every way. You live healthy, you eat healthy, you go to gym, you know, you join support groups. It helps a lot. It helps a lot.
Talk to me about your own treatment.
Okay, so my treatment, I did 16 rounds of chemo. The first 4 were the one they call the Red Devil. That is the most severe one with severe side effects for me. And then that's where I lost my hair, excessive nausea, loss of taste buds, those things. And the second one, the 12 rounds were Taxol, which I took every week, like weekly. The first one I took 3 weeks apart, the second one every week. And then after the chemotherapy, I did a segmentectomy. It's a partial surgery. They didn't take the whole of my breast. They just took the affected part. And then we had to do radiation just to make sure that they kill everything that might have been left. So when I did the surgery, they did from my breast and they took off some of my lymph nodes because they were also affected. So I did radiation, and radiation was the worst of all 3 for me. The side effects were worse for me because I got 3rd-degree burns under my breast, which was difficult because you can imagine you have to go on with your life like everything is normal. You have to walk around, and now you have burns under your boob, you know. So that was the most difficult and most painful for me. And then after that, I was on an injection every 3 months to suppress the hormones because the cancer that I had was estrogen and progesterone positive. So they had to suppress my hormones. And I'm taking tamoxifen now I have to take it for 5 years.
Sure. And in terms of the actual treatment that you have been on, how long have you been on treatment now?
It's been 4 years. Yes, the chemotherapy was 6 months, and then I did the surgery, recovered for 1 month, and then another month for radiation. And after that, it's been tamoxifen, and I go every 6 months to do blood tests. And every year, once a year, I do mammograms and they check my organs if my organs are still fine because they say chemotherapy damages your organs. So they have to check if everything is still fine.
I think just listening to all 3 of you, it's clear why cancer is a journey and that there are no quick results. It's not something that even if you get a diagnosis today, by tomorrow it can be done, or by a week's time, or even a month's time. And so it really is an important message, especially when it comes to support. So when we continue with the conversation, I'm going to ask you, about what it is that you needed most from those within your support group? Because I think that kind of information is also important for people to know about how to position themselves, right? Because sometimes you also don't know what to say when somebody tells you that they have a diagnosis. We'll continue this conversation on the Talking Point. We're speaking now to survivors of breast cancer as we shed a spotlight on this disease.
For the headlines at 11:30, I am Dino Motaung. Good morning. Another body has been discovered at Mkhekezweni village in the Biki area in the Eastern Cape. In other news, the DA says it is optimistic that the midterm budget policy statement will allow for measures to be put in place to enhance economic growth and promote job creation. And the head of the World Food Programme, Cindy McCain, has warned that Sudan could see the world's largest ever humanitarian crisis if a ceasefire between the warring parties is not reached. The full update follows at the top of the hour.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFm invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The Talking Point with Kathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We continue leading the conversation, and what an insightful morning it has been. And thank you to our specialists that joined us during the 10 o'clock hour, and our survivors of breast cancer that are with us now. So we're going to also see if we can bring in some of your calls and voice notes as you're listening to the survivors share their stories. 086 000 rather 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, that number 0614 104 107. That's 0614 104 107. So I wanted you to share with us, what kind of support do you need from family, from friends, from colleagues? And of course, the scale of support will not necessarily be the same. But what is it that people can do to make the experience of going through cancer and treatment easier for you as somebody who's a patient at the time? No?
I always say that going through cancer requires a community. Like, it takes a community to go through a cancer diagnosis. So it requires patience from yourself and those around you. So what we need from our families and friends is to, if they say that they're going to be there for us, they must really mean it. Because sometimes somebody will say, I'm here for you. But actually, if you need something, they're not there. I remember in my journey, there was a lady, it's just somebody that I know, and she said to me, I'm here for you. And I didn't believe her, but she was really there for me, because one afternoon I couldn't go and fetch the kids at school because my husband had to work. I was so tired from the chemo, and I called her and she brought the kids home. Wow. So we need that kind of support, first of all, that you are there. And cancer is a day-to-day journey. It's a minute-to-minute actually journey, because the 1 minute you can be fine, the next you're not fine. So the best thing for me is to sit down with me every day, or you can call me and say, what do you need today? Or what do you need now? Then I'll be able to tell you, okay, right now I need you to bring me water, or right now I need you to cook for me, or I need you to do this for me, because I won't be able to know what I will need in the next 30 minutes. because, like I said, it changes from time to time.
Sure. Thank you for that. Emily?
Cancer, it's a life-threatening disease. So we need all the support from our families, from our friends, neighbors, and the community at large. So every day, I will wake up and greet people good morning with WhatsApp messages. Sometimes I will never do that, but I will hear a knock at the gate that, no, what's happening to you today? I'm not feeling well. You need to check up on me every now and then. You know I've got cancer, guys. So I need all the support. Sometimes you'll wake up with your body so sore, you can't even do anything, or you've got headaches, or your feet are swollen, your hands are swollen. You need to stay positive all the time. You need, by doing that, you need all the support in every way. And every time when people ask you questions, you need to stay positive. You need to tell them what's happening with your body, what's happening with you on a daily basis. Spiritually, we need to be healed as well. We need to go to church. I'm also a church goer. So when I feel down, sometimes I went to Father, and I told the Father that I'm not feeling well today. He will pray for me. He will give me holy water just to go and drink at home, or to bath myself with that. It helps a lot. It helps a lot. Sometimes you need to sit down and just kneel down and pray for God to keep you on a very healthy mind, on a very healthy mind.
Yeah.
Because cancer, it's not a good thing living with cancer. It's not a very good thing living with cancer.
Agnes?
For me, it's just the love, the support, family and friends being there, picking up the phone, and maybe sometimes we can't answer that call, but when we can, just to ask, what do we need? If we need anything, can they support us? Or because obviously you can't drive, you can't go to the shop on your own. So just picking up the phone and asking if you need something, can we bring it over?
Yeah.
Your grandchildren, that's the most important thing that gave me so much of love and support. My grandson was 5 years old. He even brought the food to my bed to even feed me. So it was amazing. We just need that support. And remember, we don't only need the support when we are diagnosed. We need the support forever. Because we don't know when we're going to get sick again, or if we make it the next day. So wherever family and friends can support, they need it. Survivors need it. Fighters need it.
Yeah.
So that's for me.
Agnes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Pleasure.
I want to play this voice note, and it's specifically on the issue of stigma, which I think is quite big, especially for a topic like cancer too.
Good morning again, the panel. From the Cancer Association, the one is in the panel, please can you also explain more about how effect of the stress and a cell phone and a laptop on your lap about cancer. This has been researched, and then more especially with the stigma with Dr. Wallace at Cancer Association of South Africa in Cape Town branch, that how is the stigma increase on women or any other one that will not be able, as I'm doing basic education information around chronics and specializing with cancer awareness. And we found that it's a lot of stigma, that even a mother is not easy, a man is worse, just to go and check for prostates. So if maybe you can explain around it.
Good morning, Kathy, and to your panel. I'd like to know, when it comes to breast cancer, does the size of the breast matter? For instance, if you have heavy breasts and you have a big bust, does that mean that probably there could be a chance of breast cancer? Should you be worried if your breasts are growing bigger than they were probably 2 years ago? Thanks.
Hi, Kathy. I just want to say hello to you and your guests. They're very empowered, and they're also empowering us with very informative education, because I feel like, when you're diagnosed with cancer, you should really arm yourself with research and education so that when the doctor suggests therapy or any medication, you'll be able to, in a way, to understand that process, because it just reminds me of my mother, who passed on about a decade and a half ago, and she had started with colon and then it went to breast and eventually just spread and she just passed on. It was just a sad story, just to be in that room for the doctor to tell her that she's going to die in 3 months. And she was deaf. I had to interpret that information to her. So thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your journey, and your information is so helpful. And I have a friend right now who's going through the same process. So it's really helpful to hear that, so that I'll be able to support her as well. Thank you.
#SAFM Talking Point.
Well, thank you for your contributions to this conversation and all of those questions. And to our listener there who lost her mom to cancer, we're so sorry for that loss. It's 15 years ago, but one can feel just how tender it still is. Lucy, let me give you an opportunity to answer some of the questions before we wrap up.
Thank you. Just to that first caller that asked about the research about cell phones and laptop, there has been no clinical, enough evidence-based research that has come out to prove it yet. So that, I think, just to separate it from the stigma, and I think she spoke about stigma, and I think in a lot of communities we have come across that, where there's been no understanding of the cancer, the disease. And so what we do is our advocacy team and our health team, they actually do training with traditional health practitioners, so that we can teach the cancer warning signs and say, we don't want to take away from your beliefs, but we want to educate so that you work together. So when the traditional health practitioners go, they look at the warning signs and then they say, hey, look, this doesn't look right, go and get it checked out. So that way we can actually save a life and say, right, there are stigma, we know there are, and it's just not enough awareness. So, and it is something that a lot of women have spoken about, and men too. I think a lot of men are afraid and don't want to go and get checked out. And then the second question, there was a question about the breasts.
Yes, the size.
The size. I don't think there is I'm not the clinical expert, but from what I do know is that if there's unusual size of the one compared to the other, if you look at your breasts, if the one breast is unusually large than the other, but size shouldn't matter, because young, smaller women are still getting diagnosed. So it doesn't matter the size, it just means because you have breast tissues, you could be at risk. So just to make sure that, go to the website cancer.org.za, as in CANSA. Go and just check it out, look up, the risks and symptoms.
All right. Thank you for that, Lucy. Ladies, we are completely out of time for this conversation. I'm going to give each of you just 30 seconds for a message you want to leave our listeners with. Agnes, I'll start with you.
I just think when you are diagnosed, you just need to be positive, brave. Don't have a negative mind, because when you have a negative mind, that's where it takes you in the wrong direction. So, and just have a close friend or a family member with you if you're going to have your checkup done. Thank you.
Emily?
My advice to the whole world is for them to support those who have different kinds of cancers. We need their support in every way. Thank you so much.
I would say that early detection is key. So please go and have that do self-examinations. And if you find something is wrong, please go and get it checked. The worst thing that can happen is they can say you have cancer and you will be able to beat it, especially if it's detected early. And that embrace your journey. Take every opportunity as it comes and then just live a full life. Tomorrow is not promised.
Ladies, let me thank you all for coming onto the show and for sharing those experiences with us. I know that it's a journey of years and years that you've crammed up into an hour. It can never do it justice, but certainly I think we've all learned from hearing your stories. That's where we come to the end of our special broadcast today, live from the Birchwood Hotel, in collaboration with the Cancer Foundation and Birchwood, to make sure we shine the spotlight on this disease and the awareness that we need to have around it as a society. As the theme for this year says, no one should face this battle alone. And certainly hearing the journeys of these survivors, it's clear why it is that no one, absolutely no one, should face this journey alone. So be there for the people that you can be. The show back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday. Up next is the book reading.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Sanibonani babukele emakhaya igama lami ngingusisi. Make sure that you catch us on the 2nd of November, celebrating 30 years of summer music at 8:30 p.m. only on SABC1.
Celebrate 30 years of music with the Summer Awards, Saturday 2 November. Yellow carpet starts at 7:30 p.m. and the main awards at 8 p.m. on SABC1.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of A Life of Purpose, written by Luvuyo Wachela and Lumkile Wiseman Kuhlu. The reader is Lerato Mvelase.
The Secretariat's important work during the months of April, May and June 2002 was highly appreciated by the HSGIC even before the AU Summit was held in July of the same year. Wiseman and his team were pleased that their accomplishments had clearly demonstrated Africa's ownership and leadership of the initiative, in which all plans were anchored on actions by African leaders and the African people, buttressed by African interest. Only calls for support were directed to developed countries and multilateral institutions, but crucially, the NAPAD revealed that some of its development priorities differed from those prioritized by its development partners and multilateral development institutions. In addition to conflict resolution, human rights and democracy, NAPAD emphasized agriculture, science and technology, and infrastructure, including ICT, as central to placing African countries on a path to sustainable development. The Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program, CAADP, became the flagship of the forerunner of Africa's Green Revolution. On health and education, NAPAD proposed more comprehensive and integrated interventions than the Bretton Woods institutions. Science and technology, which were not on the agenda of the World Bank and development partners, were also underlined by NAPAD. Building on these plans, exceptional programs emerged, providing a short-term action plan, STAP, on infrastructure, the health strategy, and science and technology plan. In developing these plans, the NAPAD Secretariat had brought in leading specialists from Africa and from the multilateral development institutions, and they were encouraged to think freely unrestricted by their affiliating institutions. NAPAD's vision and plans had taken shape, and the Secretariat's responsibilities were growing as the all-important date of July 2002 was rapidly approaching. The African Peer Review Mechanism and the African Union from 2002 to 2003